From around the world on Google Plus and YouTube Live, it's Google Plus Week. Gray Thursday, Black Friday, and Cyber Monday are merging into what exactly? Alan Furstenberg offers his first hands-on review of the new Google game Ingress. The Google Nexus 4 has LTE after all, sort of. And Google translates Gmail into Cherokee. Google Plus Week Live starts right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Furstenberg. Dan McDermott's suffering a minor power outage this evening. We hope to have him back on the air shortly. I've got with me our usual panel of the Peanut Gallery. Wave hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. And we're going to be covering for Dan while he's gone. So first of all, we're going to turn to our first story of the evening. The Nexus 4 has limited LTE support after all. This is an interesting story that broke this week. There were some rumors about it last week. We got more info this week. Michael, why don't you share with us what we know about the LTE support in the Nexus 4? You haven't gotten your Nexus 4 yet, have you?
No, I ordered it the day it came out, very shortly after it went, on order, or they gave you the ability to order it, and it's on back order for me. So I have still like to wait another week before I receive mine. So sad.
So despite the fact that you're horribly bitter about the whole thing, why don't you share with us a little bit about what was discovered about the LTE chip inside the Nexus 4 this week?
Well, it seems that, there's some special code out there, or, special way you can hack it to the ability to get some bands for LTE, but it happens that none of the carriers out now support those bands. So maybe, T-Mobile's LTE, when they roll theirs out, it might support that specific one, but there's no way to tell. But it just seems, I wouldn't think Google would, put it out there specifically not to support the other carriers, but that they did it for a specific reason that we're all not privy to. But who knows?
Do you want to speculate what that reason might be?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to speculate what that reason might be?
The way I expect it could be, someone loyal to the T-Mobile, since they were the first ones to support Android. Another could be that some of the other carriers didn't want to play ball, since they're...
Do we want to name which carrier might not want to play ball? Does it, start with a V and end with a Horizon?
That sounds about right. That sounds, sounds in the right ballpark.
Craig, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's good news that Google is leaning towards supporting LTE. At least it would appear that they're looking that direction. But it might just be simply the chip that they bought includes some of this. I mean, many of these chips are combination chips that support various platforms. And so it might just be that the chip they bought, that they had no choice, that you can't even buy a chip anymore that doesn't support some LTE. Because LTE is the future, so, I mean, why wouldn't the chip support some of it? But this doesn't mean that it will ever be supported by the carriers here, AT&T, Verizon, et cetera.
Well, that's a very good point. I mean, it's interesting to note that the frequencies that are being used are not the ones that are used by U.S. carriers predominantly. I mean, T-Mobile may start using it sometime next year, but mostly these are international frequencies.
Yeah, and it might have just been the chip that they bought that was just included. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if chip manufacturers now are no longer making any chips that don't support at least some LTE. And eventually they might make, doesn't the chip that Apple's using in the iPhone, doesn't it support like a whole bunch of different standards and platforms?
I doubt it.
I mean, that's what I had heard.
They're using 3 different chips in the iPhone, and that's part of the design changes between the 3 of them. Or is that just an antenna difference? Do you know, Craig?
I don't know, but from what I had heard, the chip, like for example, the Verizon phone, many people are calling it a world phone because you can easily adapt it for use overseas. If you buy a Verizon iPhone, for example, it's very easy without doing any modifications to it at all to, well, you have to get one of those micro SIMs, so that's the problem. You might have to cut down a SIM, but basically you can easily use it overseas. So I think that this is the direction we're headed to, where these chips are going to support multiple platforms, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Okay. Anybody else have any further thoughts, comments on this Nexus 4 LTE interest?
Well, you could get real conspiratorial and start thinking about, like I mentioned in the chat, about the Google and Dish talks and them going into being an own wireless carrier, maybe being interested in T-Mobile, and maybe this chip is in there for reasons unbeknownst to us.
That's an interesting speculation.
One of the things I read said that the chip was missing a filter that was needed to really make use of those frequencies. Does anybody know more about that?
I don't.
No, I haven't. I mean, this has only been breaking the past couple of days, hasn't it? This is the actual the code to get it running has only been out for a couple of days now. I'm curious to know how they found that code.
Somebody from Google, might have slipped.
Oh, that's an interesting. We want to talk conspiracy theories. That's an interesting angle, Michael. Okay, so I want to remind our viewers, if there are any of you who actually managed to find the show tonight, since we are not on Dan's normal account, we're on mine instead. So if you did happen to find us, I want to remind you, you can go over to our YouTube my YouTube channel, post your comments there. I am watching. Or you can post on any of the people who have shared tonight's broadcast in the comments there. We're also following those comments, and we are more than happy to bring you into the comments on the show. We always welcome your comments. So let's move on to some of the other subjects that we had this evening. Speaking of YouTube, which I just happened to do, one of the other interesting items that came out in YouTube's official blog is they've announced there is going to be some closer integration between, another step in the integration between YouTube and Google+. And this was something that a lot of us talked about on last week's show. We kind of discussed how there was a desperate need to integrate pages, Google+ pages, and the YouTube account for that page. And now they're hinting that some of this information is coming out. And we don't have Ronnie on with us to discuss this, but anybody else in the field want to pick up on this? Has anyone else read these reports?
I've heard about this, Alan, but I haven't seen anything yet that confirms it's really going to happen. But I'm desperate for it, so I'm watching everywhere I can to find it.
Yeah, everyone is desperate for it. I mean, you got to think, if tonight we actually had this in place, we would still be able to broadcast on Google Plus Week's page, because presumably Dan would be nice enough to give me access to it. One would hope, anyway. Now, where have you heard these rumors from, Michael?
Well, I've just been watching around on Google Plus, people talking about it, so it's truly, what I've got is really only rumor. But my organization desperately needs this piece of the integration, so I'm really watching for it everywhere I can.
No, I've heard on This Week in Google that Wilson Tech One, he went up there talking to Vic about YouTube and their integrations with Google Plus, and they said it's going to be a lot more integration coming. No specifics there included, but I'm not shocked to see it. I'm actually waiting for more, because as it seems that Google Plus is going to be integrated in everything, since they have it, not looking at it more as a social network by itself, but more as a layer on top of all Google products and services.
Well,
they're going to prove that to be the right approach too.
We've been saying that for a while now, and the integration's been slow, and some of the integration's actually been really badly done. Pages really have kind of languished since they released just about a year ago now. Is this really the first step of them trying to make something quality out of it, or I don't know. What do you think's going on here, Michael? Why is it taking them so long?
Like back when they took out pages, they rushed it out. Some say way ahead of time, and they did it wrong, or not really wrong, but they didn't add a lot of the features that needed to be in there, such as multiple users managing the page and other things like that. I think more people.
I don't know. Wasn't multiple managers in there from the beginning?
No.
I thought it was.
Not early when it came out, because they were it was only one manager at the time, because you could change it to a page and use it as a brand. But I know that a lot of people seem to dislike the thing where you put it out early, have issues, and then they fix it later, other than sit back, wait for it, and then wait for a full lot release. I know a lot of people dislike that.
I prefer, frankly, that they do it rather deliberately, so that they put some testing structure around the release of these capabilities. We build a lot of our expectations around what they release at the first day, and we all get excited about it. But if it changes 3 weeks later and it upends our whole planning activity, it's really disruptive.
And we have to remember, one of the reasons why they say they haven't released an API is because they've said they don't want to release something and then change it on the developers and then change it again and then change it again. They want to get it right the first time. So that they're kind of different approaches on the same product.
Well, it's clear that Pages needs a lot of work in order to be ready for prime time. And there's a few things that we absolutely need and should have had from the very first. Right. For example, if I create a page and it's a brand that I own or I'm involved with or whatever, I should be able to immediately transfer all the people that I circled and so forth and all my circles, if I want to that account and have them be on that account and on my personal account.
There we've got another problem, Craig, and that's that, for a long time things were only attached to personal accounts. And we've got this incredible circle management problem, which they haven't addressed for anybody in any way.
That's right. It's a mess. It's a mess. And the other thing is when you're using Hangouts on Air and you're streaming Hangouts. I mean, first of all, I need to be able to go to my page and I need to be able to stream from there to whatever YouTube account I have access to, that I have the login credentials for. In addition to that, I should be able to add people as a lower level of admin to one of those YouTube channels. So that, for example, if what happened tonight happened, you could broadcast onto Dan's channel if you had limited admin permissions to do that.
And that's what we're talking about, Craig. I mean, I'm quoting the YouTube. I'm quoting now. Actually, this is going to be an interesting one. I am quoting YouTubeCreator.blogspot.de. So this is the German YouTube blog in English for some reason, and I'm quoting them now. In the coming weeks, we'll launch the option to link your channel with a Google Plus page, which will allow you to use your channel name, even with spaces in it, as your Google identity. And yes, the advanced Google Plus page management features that enable up to 50 people to manage a single Google Plus page, or a single person to manage up to 50 Google Plus pages, will also work for channels that are linked with Google Plus pages. So basically, they're saying YouTube pages, YouTube accounts are now getting managers.
Yeah, but we have to see how that's going to shake out and what permissions these managers are going to get. For example, I don't want somebody to be able to go into my YouTube account and willy-nilly delete videos and and do all kinds of things in there. You see what I mean? I want to be able to give limited permissions.
Oh,
go ahead, Pam.
I was just going to say, if let's say I trusted Alan or Dan with my account information and I gave him my sign-in and password, then you could log in and do whatever with my YouTube account, right?
Well, but that's it. Why would you give somebody else their login and password?
No.
That's the last thing you want to do.
Just let him answer. I just want the answer. Yes, he can, or no, he can't.
If you did something that stupid, yes, you could.
Probably be a violation of your account terms as well.
But you're not that stupid, Sam, so you wouldn't do that.
No, I wouldn't actually.
Yeah, Stormy's correct. It could very well be a violation of terms of service, but in any event, we generally wouldn't want to do that. And so these are the things that Google needs to look at, and they need to figure out, and they should have figured out many, many, many months ago. We've been talking about these problems. We've had these problems for a long time, and it's not rocket science. I mean, that we have the problems now. It may be rocket science to fix them, but they have rocket scientists working there, so they should be able to fix this.
I just want to bring in this comment from Crazy Buddha Charlie. The big partners do not want it. Refer to Lamar Wilson on Twit. It will be an option. Well, you know, of course it'll be an option. I hope it would be an option. But I want it as an option already.
Why wouldn't the big partners want it? I didn't understand that reasoning.
I'm not entirely sure myself, and maybe Charlie could further follow up with us on that.
Who are the big partners?
My biggest speculation is they don't want it because right now they've got some kind of competitive advantage, and this would lessen their competitive advantage. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of right now. So, any final thoughts on this one before we move on?
Is there any jeopardy to people who are already subscribing to your channel losing contact with you if you were to change? Like if I were to change mine tonight, and I could do it right now. I mean, I've already gone down the Yellow Brick Road. I could change my channel from River Bruce to Bruce Turner because I was fortunate enough to get my name early on. Is there any jeopardy of losing subscribers?
That was the biggest thing that the big partners were complaining about. When you switch over to these Google Plus, and they hate the Google Plus integration in YouTube altogether. But one of the things that changes is that algorithm that, like, if you go to YouTube right now, you'll start seeing a bunch of stuff from Google Plus. You know, Google Plus shared, this person shared this on Google Plus, and they're losing track of all of the partners' videos and contacts because they're getting more stuff now in their feed from all these people, from all these circles on Google Plus, since they're getting more tightly integrated, and they're losing all of their traffic and losing a lot of different things because it's cluttered.
So the other thing that occurs to me is they introduced this feature, I guess a month or so ago now, that lets you embed the badge on each video that would let you redirect to some other page. So that might have been in a lead up to this. Anyway, sounds like we're winding this one down. Let's move on to the next subject. There's been some rumors, some preliminary information about how Google Plus may be coming to Google Play. And by that it means that if you're going to, it may require you that if you post a comment or post feedback or any of these things on Google Play, you may need a Google Plus account, the same way that if you post a review on Google Local, you now need a Google Plus account. And everyone in this Hangout knows my feelings on that, which I'll repeat in a few minutes. But first, let me get some of the panel's thoughts on these things. I see Michael has some thoughts there. Michael Ellis, go ahead. What are your thoughts here? Nope, Michael Ellis.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Trying to unmute myself there. I'm technologically challenged. I think that's a great idea, which probably you don't agree with.
No, I don't. And I'll explain why in a minute.
I think it's a great idea because I am all for the fully integrated Google experience. I want them to play. Integration is the key thing that makes them the definitive winner in the social market, the social media world. And I want them to make everything seamless. If I sign in, I want to sign in once and have access to absolutely everything and have everything talk to everything.
I agree with you 99% there, but keep going.
It's perfect.
It's not perfect, and here's the problem. It's the same problem that we have with Google Local. And that's that it now means that everything you do, everything you say is forced to be public.
So?
And there are circumstances where, honestly, I don't want my reviews to be public.
Don't review it.
That's not a valid answer, really. If I want to review something so that my friends know it's a really crappy app, or if I wanted to review my employer's app and give honest feedback to it and say, I don't think it's a good app, I think it's got problems, I should have a way to do so. Somebody's timer just went off. I should have a way to do so.
Sorry.
Are you making popcorn too, Monica?
No, it's
Michael was having
cheese
popcorn
toast.
earlier. I should have a way to, I'm not even saying anonymously, but I should have a way to do so to a limited audience.
So
And-
I agree, Alan, that you absolutely want to preserve the ability to share things as publicly as you wish and not more publicly than you wish. But that doesn't change what I suggested, that the integration is really critical. And if all they're asking for is that you have a Google Plus account in order to comment, that means, that's the way I understood it. If that's true, then all you're asking is that everybody that comes in and participates in the Google world is a part of Google Plus. It's a way of drawing in all these people from all the different Google products into Google Plus so we can build the social network to a much broader population than it is today.
And that's why I said I agree with you 99%. Because I do think it's incredibly valuable to see that addition, to bring everything together. I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. My concern is that if they go the same way they went with Google Local, they are undermining one of the key features of Google Plus. That key feature is letting me deal with circles the way I want to deal with circles.
This is the crazy thing, though, that right now, as of right now, every time you review something, it is public. Yes, it does not associate it with your account.
Yeah, it does.
Same time, I understand you only want to share a review to a limited sort of people, but that's not even existing right now.
No, it's not, and that's why I'm saying.
And Yelp doesn't do private. I mean, if you want to just create an account for
But here's the thing. I'm not saying that.
Smith,
I'm not saying that Google should be as bad as Yelp. I'm saying that Google created a concept with Google Plus that is meant to be far and away better than every freaking thing out there right now. And they're undermining that when they do this garbage with Google Local and what I'm worried they're going to do with Google Play. It undermines what they said they were going to do.
What is it that they said they were going to do?
They said with the concept of circles that you were going to be able to share exactly what you want with exactly who you want.
I would argue that they probably still intend that, and that there's a segment of Google that isn't talking to another segment of Google, and they've misunderstood how to execute on that problem.
Now that I fully believe that one hand isn't talking to the other hand. The problem is, it really seemed like when Google Local rolled out, that Vic was all gung-ho, yes, Google Local's on board, they're doing something great, they're tied in with Google+. He's the one who should have said, wait a minute, this integration isn't complete, go back and fix it before you get on board my system.
I think it's a step in the right direction, just like YouTube when they, now you can make a video and now you can share it with this limited number of circles. I think it's part of that progression. These public reviews are, in fact, public, and it's harder to go back to that way.
Exactly. That, in my mind, is the problem. That's why Vic should have said before Local came on, hey, you messed it up, fix it first, and then you can get plugged in with Google+.
I agree.
So, I would say we're all in agreement. In that case, I guess there's no point in delaying further. Let's move on to, I'm going to skip topics a little bit and talk about Ingress. I've been playing with it for a few days now, and my father has joined our hangout, and he will attest to the fact that I've played it for a few days now. But Michael, what are your thoughts on the game? Have you played it yet?
I have. I received the invite, like the night it came out from a Google employee that works in Ingress. But the first night, I actually ran into a bug that went around, and it delayed my gameplay for, I would say, about 12 hours. Then I finally got out and played it. I disliked some elements of it. I know a lot of people dislike some elements of it as far as your gameplay, because you got to be, going out there and your screen, your phone has to always be on in order for it to work. It's an awesome concept. It draws people in. It draws, people to go around these places, and it seems to be a good integration and possibility to go on Google Glass. It seems a perfect candidate for it. And I think it's going to tie in with other Google services, Google Plus, and work with that as well. But I enjoy it. I put it that way.
I kind of agree with you. I enjoy it on one level. There are a lot of things about it that just aren't grabbing me, though.
Definitely.
I mean, and I love the concept. I love the idea of having stuff in the real world be part of the game. I think that's crucial. I think that's wonderful. I think my biggest problem, though, is in actually playing it, I'm just kind of like, okay, I now have control of a portal. So what? And I'm just having trouble kind of getting past the why do I care point of view.
The reason for that is because there are not yet enough players. I got in on the first night as well, and I spent 5 days building up the portals in my town till I controlled it. And I'm the only player in my town, so now what?
Well,
I've made the numbers on my screen go up by driving and clicking a lot, and
we've all got to go down to Jackson
until I've got another player. I've got to have a teammate. I've got to have an opponent. That's what will make it come alive.
Yeah, in fact, I chose which alliance I was on based on the fact that I saw people on the other side at some of the portals that I was hoping to take later. Mike Ellis, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm dying for whatever the code is that you need to get in, and I don't have a phone that can run this yet. So my Evo doesn't have the right version of whatever this crazy operating system is to be able to run it. So I'm the technological nincompoop of this group. So I have no idea what I need except to go out and buy a new phone for $500. I don't want to.
We have this comment from John. 2 weeks, no Ingress invite, getting less and less interested. That's actually an interesting point that I kind of wonder, what's this game going to be like weeks and months from now when you've got, a bunch of people who possibly have been playing it every day for weeks and months and have, controlled high-level portals, and these level 1 guys who come in and they're going, hey, wait a minute, there are no portals around for me to control. There's nothing for me to do. Why am I here? What are your thoughts on that, Stormy?
That makes sense. I've worried about that. Are they going to have a reset, or are they not? Either way, it's not going to be fair. They really got to ramp up the invitations, I think, because we have to have people to play with, or it's simply not interesting. And the longer that there are the haves and the have-nots, the greater the separation is going to become.
Yeah, but that kind of ends up being the case with everything that Google comes out with. Is there's always haves and have-nots, and the have-nots get annoyed at the haves. I mean, we see that all the time on Google Plus. I see Michael nodding.
It's so true, because I got in on the second day of Google Plus. I have so many followers, and is that fair?
Well, I don't know. It's a good question. Is it fair? I mean, that starts turning into the ghost town argument now, doesn't it?
Well, and then you can make the argument like, I do go out of my way to find really great stuff, and I spend hours and hours finding it and making posts. So some of it is that, but also some of it is I got in on the second day.
Yeah. Well, it continues to be that new features get introduced, and only the people that seem to be on the inside get aware of them in time to make any use of them. So this is another example of that, I think. I've struggled a lot with that over time. I don't have any answer for it. It's frustrating.
It's kind of like a pyramid scheme. Only the ones at the top benefit.
You have to be familiar with the platform to find them when they come out, unless you're really...
Well, I think
a variety of ways.
And that's another complaint.
We're also accustomed to the gigantic democratization that the
I think we
internet
lost
has brought
Michael
to the
Ellis.
world hierarchy involved, we get frustrated with Google because they've, overlaid a hierarchy on us that we don't think is at all natural any longer.
Another
Sorry, what were
complaint
you
I have with the game is there's so little documentation and training available in the game. You have to go to the internet and research yourself how to make it work.
That's a good point. I know that one of the things that I was suffering with was, yes, I went. They have a training mission, a set of training missions, and I did them standing out in the cold. So my gut reaction wasn't so much to focus on the training missions; it was to get through them already so I could start playing the game. And then once I started playing, I'm like, wait a minute. I guess I actually needed to know all that stuff, didn't I?
Alan, this kind of begs the question, is it the Google platform or the Google content that interests us?
That's always a good question. I think in this case, the game itself is innovative, but not inventive. It borrows concepts from a lot of other games. It borrows concepts that have been talked about before. Foursquare, for example, was talking about doing a game very similar to this 2 years ago or so that never quite came out. They were very much actively saying that they saw games as the future of Foursquare. So this is nothing specifically new, but I think Google is trying to do some things in new and innovative ways that they're introducing into this. Stormy, you have any thoughts on that question?
I don't.
Okay. Michael, any thoughts from you?
No, I just agree with the consensus. Like, I started playing, and it's like the use and the gameplay of it seems very difficult, and I don't think it has that easy enough factor to get the mainstream average person into it, even when they get the invite.
It looks really intriguing to me, Michael. I'm excited to get a chance to try it. Maybe I'll be bored after I try it, but right now it looks interesting.
I think it's something that's time has come. We want to get off our computers and get out and meet people and do things together.
Yeah, that's the best concept I've seen, from Google.
I don't want to go outside and meet any of you guys. I want to stay inside on my computer.
I don't know, Pam. Two things. One, you live in an area where it's warm. Two, wasn't it just last week that you were talking about how your best part of your week was having a meetup in real life with somebody you met on Google+?
Hush. It was 83 degrees today.
You're killing me.
You did say that, though. You're exactly right.
Yeah. So,
but no, to address one of... Go ahead, Pam. Sorry.
I was just saying, just met up with one person.
Okay.
Like a group. Yeah.
To address what Stormy just said, though, about having the game be a social component, I think that's a good point, and it's interesting, and Pam's now retaliating with the cat. And I think if the game
I will be eating dinner.
Okay. I think if the game had a better social component, that it might have grabbed me a little bit better. But as you say, there's nobody near you. There's not too many people near me who are playing it. And a lot of the social interaction isn't taking place in the game itself. It's taking place on forum boards or on Facebook, because there's no better way for people to communicate.
That's exactly it, Alan. You hit on it right there. The social component is not well thought out.
I agree, and actually, speaking of this, I saw my Google Plus stream 30 minutes ago of another conspiracy that might be going on with that. Someone suggested that Schemer could actually be used as a sort of a social component to go with Ingress, actually, and that would seem like an interesting thing, because it tells you what you want to do and what you're going to do and what you've done. And that seems like it could be a helping hand for Ingress, but I don't know how that could work. But
I don't know. That's an interesting thought. I think Schemer was launched for one purpose that has really fallen flat on its face.
Oh yeah. I still use it.
Yeah, you're speaking about the social media thing. I just got back from vacationing and working in Florida for 2 weeks. And in my traveling from Newport Richey across the state to Melbourne, Florida, I decided I was going to use Waze instead of Google+. I've got the Samsung Galaxy Note 2. I love the map integration with. But I thought, I'm going to try this Waze thing. And so it was quite an interesting thing. I mean, people who use Waze are called Wazers, and I'm driving and I see little icons where people can set their moods. And, I wouldn't do it while I'm driving, but if somebody else was in the car, you can actually tap on their little icon and you can chat with them. And it's almost kind of like digital CB radio, I think if they were to add more social integration to it, it would be good. And hey, why not Google maybe thinking about adding some social media integration into the Google Map, the Navigator? That might be interesting too.
Google doing social. Wow, what a strange concept. Anyway, we've got some comments that I want to bring in here from Gervin. Most interesting aspect of the game, in my opinion, is the social interaction. I've seen lots of ad hoc groups forming and meeting up to play together. Gerwin, maybe you can follow up and tell us where you're seeing those ad hoc groups forming and how they're forming,
Silicon Valley,
and so forth. No, I didn't mean physical location. I meant how are they organizing themselves. Gervin also commented that you start caring once people start destroying your nicely claimed portal links and fields. And I think that ties back into you need to get critical mass playing this, and then it might start becoming something.
But does it matter, Alan, that they're not, maybe there's more interaction or more interesting interaction in large metropolitan areas?
I think so. I mean, one of the reviews I read of it was talking about how there's a thriving set of gameplay in Chicago, for example. And I know there's a thriving gaming community around Ingress in New York City. But again, there's incredible mass on them. I've looked at the New York City map, and there's all sorts of portals all over the place that are constantly changing hands. So it's real battles there. And they're not all maxed out portals either. I mean, some of them are fairly low-level portals. For those who don't understand what we're talking about, and I realize, and I apologize in advance, the short form of the objective to Ingress is to capture what they call portals. And these portals are centered around what could best be described as well-known landmarks. I've seen them around, for example, historical markers. There's almost always one around a local library, around a local post office. Many fire stations have them. So they're well-known things that you can find. I've been told that in New York and San Francisco and Chicago, they also are almost always at major public art installations.
Yeah.
So basically, the underlying objective boils down to physically go to one of these locations, do something on your smartphone so you capture the portal, and then try to fortify it so that when somebody else comes along, they're not going to take the portal from you. We've got a comment from Bruce. Let's see. Okay. I actually run the Chicago Resistance Group. We already have hundreds of followers and over 30 people who are verified as Resistance members, all using Google Plus page as our primary point of contact. I'm going to direct this question then to Siobhan. How do you verify the Resistance members, and how do you keep your activities private, since pages are public information? And I had another. Oh yeah, how concerned are people about tying their pseudonym, their in-game pseudonym, to their real-life name? That was one of the things that concerned me a lot when I looked at Ingress. I was excited. I was initially concerned. Here I was going to be giving away all of my location information, which I'm very loath to do. But then it said, "Don't worry, you're using a pseudonym." And I'm like, "Great! Google learns what a pseudonym is again. That's wonderful and astounding, and it's not going to tie into Google Plus, is it?"
Not yet.
So Google tries to make everything fit into Google Plus as a platform. My idea is, well, the one thing Google hasn't gone after is gaming consoles. If they're going to have a game with Ingress, why not build the consoles support it?
Right.
This is very interesting to me.
Go ahead, Monica.
The pseudonym issue, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, isn't it?
We meet again.
We meet again. We this comes up every couple of months, doesn't it? And I know you and I are.
Yes.
Yeah. For those who don't know, the reason why I got on the show in the first place was because I was banned from Google Plus for using a pseudonym, and I called into Dan's show to complain about it.
Yes.
And I've been calling in ever since.
And I had to fight for my pseudonym from the start. I was not banned, but it was a major issue for me.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm piling up a bunch more comments. We have a lot of comments on this, so next week we're probably going to run Ingress Week live. No. So from Roxanne, I'm going to ask my college students if they're interested or have even heard of it. And that's an awfully good question. Are we exposed to it? Do we know something about it because it's been flooding our Google Plus streams? I've seen a lot of people essentially complaining about how it's taken over Google Plus recently.
Actually,
go ahead, Monica.
I have a related issue. It turns out that at the University of Colorado, there was a teacher who actually had the students study the hashtag and the trending feature on Google Plus to see how it worked.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I'd love to see further.
Yes.
If you could post that URL, I would love to read that.
Sure. It's actually.
And we'll see if we can get it. Some follow-up comments. More from Gervin. At least in my area, the in-game com challenge is quite active with messages like, "Hey, I've made this strong portal. Maybe somebody can help keep it alive. I saw you're active in location right now. I can be there in a few minutes," and that helps reinforce the portal. And again, that actually does suggest the social component. One of the things about higher level portals is that in order to secure them, you need more than one person to do so. Okay, so.
Is there a safety issue with any of this? Because, for instance, going back to Waze, they delay by 2 to 3 minutes the icon location on the highway that you're traveling on. So is there any concern about that?
It's real time. The in-game chat is real time, and it is based on location. So it's not grouped down to a certain spot, but it is grouped to a certain local area.
Yeah, but that local area is pretty darn local. I mean, you need to be within a couple of feet of a portal.
Yeah, but I'm paranoid. I don't want I do not want to get a message from someone saying, "Oh, I see you're right here. I'll be right there." No.
Yeah, I'm pretty paranoid myself, which is why I was concerned about this. Anyway, we have a reply from Shivian, and I apologize that I'm mangling your name. People have not yet expressed a concern about linking to their Google Plus information. We also don't share our verified resistant members' roster publicly, only to other verified agents. But, he then points out, there are no markers for other people's locations ever. You see portals, but not other people. Shivian, I think our point, though, with this is if you see a portal being taken over, or somebody planting or somebody doing work on it, you see who's done that. And if you see that change, you know where that person is at that moment. And in fact, do you get a notice when somebody has taken over a portal with a timestamp? So you see when that person was at that location. And if you start to see a pattern here, you can start figuring out where people are going to be at a given time. And for people who are concerned about that kind of privacy, that's a concern. I guess I can understand that that people who are into the game and who want to play the game will give out their real name. Will be happy to tie their pseudonym to their real name or their Google Plus name. Sorry, that just concerns me a little bit, and I know that's something I'm very hesitant about doing. Now, Shivian points out the lowest level of filtering is 20 kilometers, so you can't filter down to only 20 feet. That's true, but if you see somebody taking a portal and you click on that portal, you'll know where they are. I mean,
it'll say Billy Bob captured the public library at 2:02.
Exactly.
You know
Right.
exactly where he was at 2:02.
So these are the concerns. Anyway, we've got a bunch of other stuff related to
Started
this.
using this as an alibi for defensive murders.
Now that's an interesting thought, Gary. Anyway, we have this comment from Kevin. Video gamers want to sit on the couch and not do things to play. Now Ingress is going to appeal to their desire to go outside? Yes! Yes, yes, yes!
I
That's
agree.
exactly it!
That's exactly
Precisely
the
it.
point.
Go ahead, Michael Ellis.
Alan, your excitement is exactly right. This is about getting new gamers to the table who would love to play a game but that do not want to be trapped inside the house attached with a tether to their computer. They want to get out in the world and do things and see things. This is a game that supports that, encourages that.
And here's the real question is, will real gamers, and I very, very much put that in quotes, like this game because it forces them to go in the real world, or does it actually appeal to what they want or are looking for? I don't know. I'm not a real gamer, and I know I'm not a real gamer.
I think it does, because they are knocking the doors down at Google begging for these invitations. I've had 15 people ask me for an invitation just because I play.
But do they realize what they're getting themselves into, that they're actually going to have to go in the real world?
Well, I think that's pretty clear.
Okay, so I got this article here, and it's about it's the first course to make use of Google Plus for educational impact. It's using Google's trending topics
Okay.
and the hashtag.
Let's make sure that gets into our document, or document. If somebody can put it there, I'd appreciate it. And I'd like to push that off to next week so we make sure we give it the attention that it deserves. 'Cause
Okay.
I would certainly like to read it, and I'm not going to be able to in the middle of the show tonight. I apologize.
All right.
I'm probably the oldest guy here in the hangout, and I remember parties and having rallies, road rallies. I remember how fun that was back in the '60s. So now you just added a new element. I think it's very compelling. I've requested my activation code this evening and downloaded it on my Samsung Galaxy Note 2, and I'll be waiting anxiously.
Tonight's show brought to you by the Samsung Galaxy Note 2, because Dan's
Yes.
Nexus 7 isn't here tonight.
I have one though.
And a reminder for those of you who are following along, Dan is apparently still suffering a power outage. The last message I received from him was that he was doing okay, he just couldn't get on the show, and he was frustrated that he couldn't, but he wishes us all the best of luck, and he will try to join us. Here's another comment that we received from John Jensen. Just wondering, is Foursquare still growing now that Google Plus and Facebook have check-in services? Personally, I like Foursquare, but it is quicker to just use Facebook or Google Plus for it. Anyone have any thoughts on Foursquare's growth prospects? Didn't Facebook buy them?
I use Foursquare all the time, and the reason I do, and made a post on Google Plus a few days ago about it, that I went to like a restaurant and checked it on Foursquare, and they gave me like a free medium fry, a free shake. I see the growth of Foursquare still growing in my area, even though I'm in like a rural area sort of, and it's still growing, in my opinion, no faster than what it was before. But people are using it still.
So you're in it for the free stuff?
Of course. That's the one thing about Foursquare that's compelling for me. There are free things, and it tells you about places where you get discounts and all kind of stuff.
Okay, so there's at least one person who thinks that Foursquare is a glowing future out there. And like I said, Foursquare, when I had heard, I guess it was about 2 years ago now, they were talking about how the next thing they wanted to work on were things like augmented reality games, which is similar to what Ingress is doing. So that's it's interesting to see where they're going to be taking this next. Here's an interesting comment from Shivian.
Yes.
I actually look at Ingress more like a digital sport rather than a game. The outdoor body involvement makes it feel more sport than game, where game is something like Angry Birds or chess or whatever. That's an interesting thought. Bruce, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I as soon as I read that comment, I was hoping surely we would move on to the next topic before you could get to that. I think it's an excellent comment, and it goes back to what I was thinking about, this whole idea of the sport, aspect. I mean, I remember getting directions to try to find different clues on these rallies that we'd go on, and and there was a time element involved too that made it fun. So yeah, I see clearly what he's getting at, and
I'll be honest. I've got to think about that more because it was one. Go ahead, Pam.
I was just going to say, maybe if they made it more like, oh gosh, I can't think of the word.
Sounds like two words, second
it's
word.
2 words.
To me, it seems like capture the flag.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, like capture the
that's a
flag
good
or
analogy, yeah.
a scavenger hunt. That
You
was
want
what
to
I
know
was
what it
thinking.
sounds like? What it sounded like to me from the beginning is geocaching. And it seems it borrows a lot of concepts from geocaching, and I'll be honest, I hate geocaching. And the reason why I hate geocaching is because I used to do orienteering. And orienteering to me required not just a set of skills, but required a complex way to execute that set of skills. It was a challenge to do what you needed to do. To me, geocaching never seemed difficult because it boiled down to show up at this location and you get something. And to me, that wasn't interesting.
Well, I know I'm in with conspiracy theories today, but one person I saw on another podcast where they were interested in seeing why they put out Ingress, and a lot of people thought that, hey, they're using Ingress and they're using all this geo data to improve their maps, improve their this thing, and they're making all these people and they're gathering all this information and applying it to their other services.
I thought about that.
I think that's quite logical.
I think that's quite bogus.
What? They gotta be okay. I think
Why?
it'd be crazy. I think they'd be crazy not to take this useful information that they're getting, because local and all of this data that everyone else is behind on, they have an advantage on. They'd be crazy not to use it.
But here's the thing. What are they getting from Ingress? What data are they getting?
discounts for meals for Ingress players.
There's another thing that people aren't doing, and I think this is what another way that they're going to get information from Ingress. In order to add a portal, in order for them to put another portal, in order to put another portal.
There I agree, but that's not playing the game. That's creating a new portal.
But again,
They're
that's playing the
incentivizing
game.
us.
That's getting more portals. That's getting more things that you can take over yourself, and that's giving them more information that they can pipe into Google Glass, that they can pipe into Field Trip, and all these other services that go with Google Glass.
I will absolutely agree that the aspect of of requesting to get a new portal does put more information into their map, which will benefit them, which benefits us. I agree with you 100% there. But I've heard people say things like, oh, the whole point of Ingress is to be able to plot where people walk paths are. I'm like, what, are you stupid?
I mean, they can use that data. And another thing that I think,
Michael, I have not walked to a single one of my portals yet. I've driven to every single one.
Me too. I've done the same. But
okay,
I know a lot of people that have.
My understanding from the New York City people is none of them walk to any of it because it's too freaking cold in New York City.
Agreed.
It is cold there. It's true.
Okay, so if they are getting this walking data, they're getting bogus data, and they're not stupid enough to take it.
They're also getting corrections to their existing locations. I've already submitted 2 portal corrections that they had in the wrong place. So they're going to get a lot of that.
I can see that, but I do the same thing when it comes to maps in general. I mean, I've tried desperately to change where some roads are going that I know aren't there, and it's taken me a month in some cases just to get a simple road change. I noticed that one of the things that I did find interesting was around one of my portals, there are a number of walking paths, and I know those walking paths are there because I told them they were there. but that was something I did months before Ingress was there. And if you really want to do something, if you want to sabotage your enemy, what you're going to do is you're going to put out false information. So I'm not entirely sure that's a good way to get valid information.
I think they are, and I know one story, we're not talking about that, I just put in chat, that they added about like 10,000 walking paths and plans that they're collecting from phones. And like we've seen like some cards pop up about you've walked so many miles this month. I think they are getting this data. They're not utilizing it that much yet, but I think it's coming. I definitely do.
I'm dubious. I'm dubious that that's one of the purposes of Ingress.
I mean, they'd be crazy not to utilize it. They got the information. They can get it. They got it. Why not use it?
I think you're naive, Alan.
I think that if they rely on this information, they're relying on bogus information.
The one thing I learned that the Army taught me to trust, but always verify. I mean, they got it. They look at it. They can use it as a guideline. They can use it as a little hint. But
that's what I think. Yeah.
But this is Google. They don't do the verify part.
It's algorithmic.
They don't do algorithmic verification. I mean, I've seen the maps. I've tried to correct the maps.
They actually have a new, I know we're not talking about this either, but there's a way where you can get badges for correcting maps and sending out corrections, and you can verify.
Yes, I know. I know. This is how I've been trying to correct the maps.
They're overhauling it. There's a new system, new thing that they're just starting to use that's not really, out too much yet.
Anyway,
it's coming. It's getting better.
Okay, I wanna wrap this up with this comment from Gerwin, and then we'll move on. Gerwin points out the real reason for Ingress is for people to buy more battery packs. And if you played Ingress, you'll realize it drains your battery incredibly fast. So
it does.
I think Gerwin's on the right track there. Let's move on. Somebody's been rearranging my document on me. I guess related in some ways to Google doing things well when it comes to maps, we then look at the opposite with somebody like Apple doing things badly. We had an article this week with the subject Apple's big problem. Google is getting better at design faster than Apple is getting better at the internet. And it's an interesting question. I'm a little dubious about Google getting better at design, but we'll see. Pam, what are your thoughts on this? Pam looks shell-shocked. Pam looks like she has her mute button on.
Completely unprepared for your question. So could you please ask it again?
Sure. What are your thoughts on the premise that Google is getting better at design faster than Apple is getting better at the internet? Pam is still shell-shocked. I'll open it out to the crowd. Michael.
I think that is true, and from the development of Android and the fact that they're pulling from all of these different areas where Apple keeps their things in-house mostly, that they're getting better at design and getting better at the internet, that they're doing things, more efficiently, and it inclines a lot faster than the changes at Apple.
I think the other interesting thing about your question was when you say Google is getting better at design, I was trying to figure out, are you talking about hardware design or software design? Obviously, they're getting better at software design, and their partners, I think, are getting better at hardware design. So I think on both fronts, I agree with the article's proposition.
But what do you think about the opposite half of that, and that's that Apple is not doing nearly as well when it comes to web-based stuff?
Maps.
Well, part of that is because Apple.
YouTube.
Part of that is because Apple locks down all their stuff. Everything's proprietary. You got to go through the super secret porthole of the iTunes store to do anything, and they've limited themselves. So
well, but remember, I mean, but consider, for example, Chrome is based on top of WebKit. Who designed WebKit? Apple. Okay, so it's Apple's got a pretty solid foundation here. Okay, Michael, you disagree. What do you think?
Looking at their track record, a lot of their hardware, I love their hardware. Most of all their products, I love the hardware. all of their online or software stuff, I absolutely hate. Look at Ping. Look at Maps. All of these things that...
Yeah, and a lot of people are going, Ping? What's Ping?
See, my point exactly. But look at iTunes. Look at, what is this, iCloud? I mean, a lot of things that they're doing...
At the same time, Michael, go look at QuickTime. You know, until YouTube came along, QuickTime was the source for online video.
Okay, and what is it doing now?
Was.
And it hasn't advanced in years. It's exactly where it was.
Yeah.
Which makes the point, right?
Yep.
They get ahead with the design, and then they refuse to move on.
Because they don't outsource.
They say, it's perfect, we're not touching it again.
You're using it wrong.
Yeah. But I agree that Google is getting better at design. You know, Jelly Bean version of Android, I think, was a great example of how they are striving to make things easier to use, better integrated, and smoother, which it really needed.
It desperately needs, but, you know, at the same time, I look at how far Google has to go with design still. And just all of the missteps that they keep making time after time after time. I mean, Google Plus is there are still tons and tons of design problems here, and they're lingering and festering. You know, yes, I can say that Jelly Bean has some design elements to it that really look like they're well thought out, and they're really getting there. And then they do something like lose December. They lost December. How do you lose a whole month?
That's just a QA issue. That's an oversight.
It's just an oversight. We didn't need that month anyway. That's part of design. Apple has incredible attention to detail. And that's what they excel at, is that attention to detail. Google doesn't have that attention to detail yet. No, I'm about to eat my own words.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have seen more and more places where they're beginning to get it. But overall, it still seems like Google fixes something, you know, gets something to the 90% point, and then say, well, it's not enough.
Good enough.
And they move on. Apple gets to the 100% point, and then say, okay, now how can we make it even better? And they do. That's the difference between Google design and Apple design.
Now, speaking of design, should I go back to the thing called AntennaGate?
What are we talking? What? Repeat that? Oh, you're going back to Apple and AntennaGate? Okay. You know,
I think we all agree that Apple is better at design than
They are,
Google.
definitely.
But that wasn't the question. The question is who is accelerating more quickly in
But
the
Google-
opposing camp's area of expertise.
Definitely.
Go ahead, Monica.
Google is getting great at function. You know, Google is great at function, but Apple, you know, has hands down better design.
Well,
You see people here.
Here's the follow-up question, I guess, related to that. Can Apple, where does Apple fall in that function issue? Are they addressing functionality correctly?
No.
I don't think
They have
they
a
really
different-
are. I think that's where they're falling down now.
Yep. Agreed.
They have a different idea of functionality. To us Android gearhead geeks, we think functionality is everything it can possibly do and a little bit more. And to the folks that like the Apple products, functionality is it does what I want it to and nothing else.
Let me bring in a couple of quick comments, ignoring some of the more snarky ones. As much as I agree with the more snarky ones,
Snarky comments on this show? You're kidding.
from Shivian, QuickTime, don't you mean real player? No, I mean QuickTime. There once was a point in time when every major studio would release their movie trailers on QuickTime. And they did it because that was the best way to do so. And, you know, they don't do that anymore.
Apple.com. It was the portal for movie
I
trailers.
don't think I was born then.
Yeah, well, you're a pretty young one. And from Kevin, Jelly Bean showed Google could smooth the rough edges of their iterative design. Can they Jelly Beanify the rest of Google services on Android? I think that is a great question.
Yes, I think so. It's proven.
Really? Where?
Look at the entire OS. They've kept some
Chrome OS? You're going to use Chrome OS as an example?
I said
Bad
look
example.
at the entire use of their OS. I did not say Chrome OS. That was nothing. I wouldn't, pimp out Chrome OS just yet. That still has a long way to go. But it proves that they're getting better at it.
So
at Google now.
Come on, give me a good example of design outside of Android.
I'm sorry?
Give me a good example of design outside of Android.
Outside of Android design?
Yeah.
I think Google Plus has a decent design as a platform.
I don't know.
Look at Google now.
Start.
Google now.
Google Maps or Google? What did you say?
Now.
Google Now is part of Android. Try again.
What? It uses search though, man. It uses the signals now.
Try again. Next.
Another one? Sheesh. Look at Docs.
Look at what?
Docs.
Docs? You mean Drive? No, wait. You mean Docs? No, wait. Drive? No, wait. What do you mean?
Well, I'm one of the old people of Google services. I know a lot of the old names for things that change, but yeah, Drive.
So
Sure.
okay, we want to talk about Drive. Yeah, there's a lot of great concepts there, but in order to actually use some of the functionality, you got to jump through a whole lot of hoops,
That's
and
everything.
you need to use an app store that's different than their app store. This is Google.
You
They
don't
have two
need
app
to.
stores. What the hell's the point?
You don't need to.
Yeah, you do. Well, if you're not, then you're not using Drive.
You do today, but you shouldn't need to.
Anyway, I think I understand the point of the article, and I get what you guys are saying. So I think here's a case where we certainly all agree Google is far and away blowing Apple out of the water, and it is well deserved that they should. We all in agreement on that point?
Absolutely.
We all are. See, I knew I'd find common agreement on this ground.
So say we all.
Next up on the topic, I'm going to open this out to the panel pretty much straight out, and I don't really want to spend all that much time on it. Great Thursday, which I guess is the practice of opening up your store while you're still eating dinner. Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I'm going to mention Small Business Saturday here. What are they merging into? What does the panel think holiday shopping is going to look like in 10 years? And if Craig was here, I know what his answer is. But I'm gonna go down the line. I'm gonna start with Stormy. What do you think shopping is going to look like in 10 years?
I sure hope it's not what it is now, but I have no further clue. I hate to see what they do to people on holidays when they should be home with their families, and I hate to see the videos of people clubbing each other for phones and socks, and it's.
Do you think there's going to be a lot of backlash from this year, from what Walmart's doing this year?
I don't.
You don't. You think they're going to expand it next year?
I think it's going to get worse and worse. That's what I'm going to say. That's my prediction.
Pam, your thoughts?
Oh, I have lots of them on this subject, and so we've trained retail to do this to us. We did this. Retail did not do this. They discount stuff. We buy that. We do not buy stuff unless it's discounted. They have learned how to offer the carrots to get us in the door, and in order to maximize their advantage, they're going to continue to open earlier and earlier and different days, and now it's going to be, Purple Monday, the Monday before Thanksgiving, and yes, it will get worse until the retailers smarten up and just quit offering these kind of deals and discount at a reasonable rate, throughout the entire season, and forget this Black Friday crap.
But what will make them wise up? Because they're making money hand over fist.
Well, but
they're not making money. Actually, they make their profit margins. Retail profit margins are really slim compared to let's say Google or some of these other biotech companies, for example. I mean, if we don't have a 70% profit margin at my company, we don't launch a product.
Well,
and retail can't say that.
It's called Black Friday because for many businesses, it's the first time of the year when they have
that's right.
made a profit.
For the entire year. And their discounts, the stuff that the doorbuster deals are actually loss leaders. They are losing money on those. They're not making any money on those.
Well, but here's the other thing to that, Pam. My understanding is that the smart shoppers actually know that the Black Friday deals aren't the best deals. It's the ones that are the week before Christmas that are the best deals.
Yep. The ones that are the week before Christmas, and also it depends on what you're buying. If you want to buy sheets, then wait till January.
Okay, I just needed to toss this in because we haven't had enough snark yet. Kevin, I plan to buy a Nexus 4 on Black Friday. Oh wait, Google completely sold out days ago.
T-Mobile.
So moving down the road, Michael Ellis, what are your thoughts on this subject?
Well, for sure, Pam is right that we've taught the retailers that this is how they need to behave. The only way the retailers are going to change is if the consumers stop behaving the way they do. I think it will change. I don't know if it's next year. We may not be at the end of the curve here, but there is an end in sight for this because people are already beginning to tire of it. It's beginning to lose its excitement for people sitting out all night on sidewalks to get the one of 5 boxes of some kind. I'll call it Xbox, not having a better name. Xbox.
No, so we're going to talk about Microsoft products now. Is that
or any other product with brand X, if you know what I mean. So people are going to just tire of that. People are tiring of that, and eventually that will reflect in their behavior around the holiday seasons, and they'll stop behaving stupidly like they do now.
Michael,
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I see no change no time soon because there's no incentive on either end that's going to change it.
Somehow I have a feeling. Well, I'm going to say Monica for one more second. Bruce, your thoughts first.
Listen, this herd mentality, it almost goes back to Shivian's comment about Ingress. This shopping has become more like digital sport. I'm looking at a great article on The Verge. Walmart tries a blended channel approach to survive in a digital world. And the article's all about, Walmart is saying, we don't want to compete against. The goal is not to pit physical stores against the website, but to use this hybrid approach. So I think the fact that you have a big retailer like Walmart is looking at some kind of a hybrid approach involves, to me, we're making some movement. Here's what I would like to see. Let's start a brand new tradition. Let's have a big family gathering, a super duper meal, and everybody gathers around. You have multiple laptops in the house, and everybody gets a certain amount of money to spend, and you have this family shopping spree. You do all your shopping together. You play games, have a good time, watch, It's a Wonderful Life, and everybody goes home happy. How about that?
Okay, so Thanksgiving shopping as a game. Monica, what are your thoughts?
I feel that maybe we should use evolutionary behavior to predict trends, and that's since it's gotten worse and worse and worse, maybe we should use that as a model to extend behavior into the future and predict how we can make it better.
I know.
Am I crazy?
So Monica, so you're predicting that the Black Friday sales will start on Halloween Eve in 10 years. Is that what you're going for? Is that your prediction?
No, I'm predicting that since we've gotten to the point where we're all acting like animals, maybe we should actually get scientists to study this behavior.
Okay.
Do some double-blind.
There's nothing unusual with this behavior.
Yeah, I mean,
this is completely normal human behavior.
And it's not smart shopping either. When you
it's not. It's what she said, herd mentality. It totally is just. I mean, this is the first year in 20 years I've missed Black Friday, and you know why? Because my oldest daughter's 20 years old, and she doesn't need anything.
I mean, we had people shooting guns. We had
crazy.
Yeah.
I think in 10 years, the way I see it, I think the big guys like Walmart, they're going to realize how to move their, I'd say, their marketing and the way they sell products to an online area, and we're all going to be online trying to buy things like the Nexus 4. That's what I perceive in 10 years. There still will be a crowd, but it won't be in the stores.
Okay, I just want to wrap this up with a quote that we got from David. It is ironic that the least commercialized American holiday is followed by the most disgusting display of commercialism one can imagine. And, you know, I think that's a sentiment that everyone seems to have, but as all of us have discussed, it tends to be human nature that we seem to fall into it. So moving on to the next topic, and I probably should have covered this one previously, was a story about Google wants to take on Apple with an open AirPlay alternative. And I assume that's also Google taking on Apple TV and the rumors of a new revamp to the Google TV line and the rumors of Apple coming out with a real Apple TV. Does anybody here actually have a Google TV product? I know I don't. I've got this glowing ball called Q, which, you know, we've all heard my tales of that. Does anyone have any thoughts on the competition for the living room?
I mean, I think that is going to be the next thing that everyone tries to capitalize on, because it's where, you know, a lot of people spend a lot of their time if they're home.
Michael, I'd agree with you, except for the fact that people have been saying that for 5 years now.
It's still the case.
But in those 5 years, we saw the battle change from the battle for the living room to the battle for social. So you're saying finally they're going to get around to going back to the living room again?
It's the battle for both, because when we're not at the living room and we're not social, then we're doing something, we're watching something. But they're trying to pipe in the fact of being social while you're in the living room. But everywhere else, you're still going to be social. It's social 24/7. But you still spend a lot of time in the living room, and they haven't yet figured that out. And I think this AirPlay, I mean, I use all my Android devices to control like YouTube on my PS3, and I mean, it's getting better than what it used to be. And I actually used it a few hours ago, and it worked fine. But
I think the article that I'm reading is interesting, and I think they're basically saying that Google's approach is going to be to introduce some open standards. And I think that's a great idea if it wasn't for the fact that we have open standards already. Microsoft introduced them 15 years ago.
They introduced a tablet 15 years ago, too.
Okay, so you're saying it's finally, you know, people are finally starting to listen to Microsoft again.
No, they just got to get it in a different way where it relates to them. It's no such thing as something being too early for its time.
Oh, I don't know. I think 15 years ago was certainly the right time, just nobody figured out how to capitalize on it, and Microsoft screwed it up as usual.
Then why didn't they adopt tablets?
Because Microsoft screwed it up as usual.
And that's why they're introducing it in a different way.
So you don't think Google's going to screw it up as usual?
I'd rather them screw it up
than Microsoft screw it up, or than Apple screw it up. But here's the thing: Google's already shown at least once at least twice now that they know how to screw up this market. I mean, Google TV has fallen pretty much flat on its face over and over again, and the Q was such a success that they pulled the product before it launched
and give it away.
Anyway, anybody else have any thoughts on this particular subject? Hearing a rousing chorus of agreement, we shall, as always, move on. Here was a little tidbit that came across the wire that was kind of fun. A lot of us know that Google releases all their products in a number of languages. Well, apparently they've decided to release Gmail now has support for Cherokee. And it's a shame our usual Cherokee panelist is not able to join us this evening. But
Cherokee, wait a minute. Navajo?
Sorry. My notes say Cherokee, and you're right. Harold is Navajo, so I grossly apologize to everyone.
And technically, the language of the Navajo is Diné.
I
just
sit corrected.
want to put that out there.
Would you like to discuss this one further, Monica? Since obviously I am unprepared on this point.
No problem. I'm not trying to, but I do know quite a bit about Native American languages.
No,
So-
I will admit ignorance. So, have you heard this story, and is there anything further you wish to comment on it?
I actually have not read the story. I just do know a lot about Native American languages. Are they also releasing it in Lakota?
No.
Or
From
because those are the two biggest languages of that are still alive of
from my
the
quick
Native
read
American.
of this. From my quick read of this, they're not. They're just doing it in Cherokee at the moment. It began when Craig Cornelius, a Google engineer, shared a ride with Vince Blackfox, member of the Cherokee Nation. They got talking about the effort to preserve Native American languages, many of which have been dying out.
So it really is Cherokee? It
What?
says Cherokee in the article?
It says Cherokee in the article.
Oh, okay, so then it's not Harold's language.
No, it's not. That was my
Okay.
mistake. That was
Okay.
my mistake. I plead total ignorance. And
Wow, because Cherokee is really obscure. I mean, it's not one of the largest remaining languages.
Interestingly, the official Google blog has this article listed for March 25th of 2011. Google search now supports Cherokee.
But that's Google
Okay.
Search, not Gmail.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So, Alan, one of my employees has a Cherokee Indian in his family tree. So as soon as I saw this article, I was immediately interested in it and sent it off to him to suggest that we should enable our Google Apps account to support Cherokee also, in addition to English and German.
So that was interesting.
So that's
languages, but there you go.
there's an argument that basically you should enable the languages that are least spoken first, because you want to try and keep them alive, because the languages like Navajo and Lakota have more speakers, so they're in less danger of going extinct first.
Monica, is there a commercial advantage to doing that you can describe, or are you saying from a corporate citizen's perspective, it makes sense to support that?
Well, they're actually, if you drive across the Navajo Nation, you can hear commercial radio stations in Navajo. I actually have done that before, and I've heard the radio stations in Navajo.
But nothing like that anymore in Cherokee?
No.
Okay. So it must have been the confluence of interesting circumstances that a Google person happened to be sitting with a Cherokee, a member of the Cherokee tribe.
Well, and it seems that's how Google ends up doing a lot of things, is by interesting circumstance. One thing that I find both interesting and a little disappointing is I just popped over to translate.google.com to see if Cherokee was there, and it's not listed. In fact, I did not at a quick glance see any Native American languages as part of Translate. This sounds like it's a particular interest of yours, Monica. Is that the sort of thing that you think these particular cultures would be interested in? Is having Translate as part of something supported by Google?
I think so. And I would love to, actually I'm going to draw this show to the attention of the page Native American Encyclopedia, which I follow.
Great.
They post regularly.
So my flub is going to be drawn to the attention of Native Americans.
I think it's great to enable this dialogue and to start the discussion, and they'll be really glad to, talk about it, and it's important.
I think so too, and I think it is something that will be great to see where Google goes with this and what other kind of mutual support they can give.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got two subjects left, and they're both really, really thrilling, exciting subjects. They're really kind of Dan subjects, but So I'll bring them up quickly, and maybe we'll actually get done before midnight tonight.
Do you just not want to talk about politics, or?
It's not that I don't want to talk about politics, it's that I really don't want to talk about politics. No, but both of these are actually technology stories. Both of these are technology stories that just happen to involve politics, or at least government. The first one is that Google has hired the Deputy Director of the National Highway and Transportation Safety Administration. And why in the world would they hire this person? Well, because they want somebody to oversee their driverless car program.
Right.
Street cred.
Right, street cred. That's funny.
Great way to put that one, Bruce. Thank you. So now you're on the hot seat to explain what's going on.
Well, I mean, I think we all think that this thing about the car is interesting, and I think it's a great thing for Google. But if you're going to get this in one or two states out west, you're going to need to have somebody with credible knowledge about highway safety to give it a little spurt forward. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense for them to do this.
Yeah, I agree.
It makes sense until you realize that they're paying him to say the things he's going to be saying.
Well,
everyone gets paid
look at it this way.
They say.
Look at it this way.
They don't ever say their honest expression of their opinion.
And to tell you the truth, so was his old boss, paying him to say what he was going to say. So, it doesn't really matter.
Stormy, I look at it this way. It's better than if the head of the driverless car program at Google went to work for the NHTSA.
Yes.
This is in the other direction. So that at least gives it a little more credibility than, having the industry shill suddenly start working in government and writing the regulations. Okay, so we're all in agreement. We can move on to this subject.
And wait, before you move on.
Okay, go ahead, Monica.
I think that's awesome, and I have really a lot of hope that there's this really cool idea that I shared this thing on Google Plus Science Lab about someone has an idea to turn roadways into giant solar panels. They received a grant from the Federal Highway Administration, and in 2011 they were actually looking at doing this larger scale. So anyway, I just think that's interesting.
That is very interesting.
So
and that's
if anyone at Google is watching, combine the two.
Google is always
solve
watching.
Climate change at the same time. I'm just saying, you could solve all the world's problems.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake to refer to this guy as a shill. I mean, quite honestly, Google's going to hire somebody to develop some other kind of a software thing. They're going to go out and try to find somebody who really knows their stuff about this. So I think it's premature to think that this guy is just going to say what he's paid to say. Right. I mean, does anybody know anything about this guy? Have you studied him? Do you know if he's respected in his field and that sort of thing? So let's be careful not to jump ahead too fast.
Yes, he could be what they need to guide them through the process of making this legal in all 50 states. Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Certainly. Looking quickly at the article that we have from The Verge, it talks about how he'll be joining in January, describing the decision as bittersweet after more than 40 years of work in the public sector. He is 64, joined the NHTSA in 2003, deputy director in 2009, confirmed his position a year later. Working under the administrator, he played, quote, an instrumental role in enacting safety-minded policy, helped finalize new corporate average fuel economy standards announced in August. Another quote, he has been an indispensable part of our efforts to make cars safer, eliminate accidents caused by drunk and distracted driving, and improve fuel economy for drivers across the country, said Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood. I think clearly the guy knows what he's doing. You wouldn't be in that position for that long if you didn't. And I do think it's legitimate for Google to have him, certainly. But let's be honest, at least part of his role is going to be playing lobbyist back to the agency he used to work for, which, if done correctly, is a legitimate use of lobbying. if done incorrectly, it turns into a shill. And I think I am hopeful that Google. Let me put it this way: I know which side I hope Google is playing it on, and I hope they do it that way.
Everyone lobbies. Every single company. If you think no company lobbies, you don't know how government works.
Right.
Well, and since he worked for the government, he was obviously on the government's payroll system, so maybe he was a G12 or a G14. Now he's going to work for Google. Maybe he'll have a G16.
And with that, we'll move on to the final topic that we had this evening, which was actually a pretty interesting comment, if it wasn't politically loaded. Apparently, a report came out this week from a certain party, which I will not name, that basically talked about how copyright needed. There were a number of myths behind copyright, and that it needed a huge level of reform, and that this particular party should get behind reforming it. And it was pulled within a couple of days. Presumably because it wasn't an official release, and this is a complex issue that required further study. And there's speculation that it was the copyright industry which basically talked to their supporters and said, speaking of lobbying, went and talked to their supporters and said, pull this or else. I don't know how many other people have looked at the study yet, but we bring up intellectual property issues quite a bit on the show, and I know it's something that comes up a lot. What are our thoughts about how there are now people in relatively high positions of government who think that copyright needs work? Monica, I see you smiling there. What's your thought?
I agree. Copyright definitely needs reform. My dog is crazy. In an unrelated issue. That's why I was making a weird face. But I totally agree that copyright must be reformed. Ever since, there's an excellent video on YouTube that talks about the history of copyright if you follow C.P. Gray. I recommend that video. It talks about the history of copyright, and ever since copyright's been around, it's been being extended. And there's been a constant battle between authors who want copyright rights extended, and it definitely needs reform, and it's reached kind of a critical. I run Google Plus Book Club, and so I run up against this. The Great Gatsby, still not in the public domain, and it's almost 100 years since it was published. I cannot read the original text of Peter Pan, the play, and it's over 100 years since it was published. It's just ridiculous.
And you'll never be able to in England, because in Great Britain they have specifically legislated that Peter Pan will be under copyright indefinitely.
Indefinitely. And actually, not just in England, but in the United States as well. Only in Australia, for some reason. If you look up the usage rights, could you read it? It's a tangled mess. And if copyright was actually, originally, it's in its usage, Star Wars, the original Star Wars would now be in the public domain.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this? I'll be honest, one of my concerns isn't so much for copyright right now, although I'll be honest, it's a huge concern of mine. It's that we're now starting to see the concepts of first use being eroded, and we've got a Supreme Court case currently being looked at where people who have purchased a book and have purchased it out of the country and brought it into the U.S. are now unable to sell it. And apparently, depending on how you look at it, no longer have rights to the property they've purchased. And that starts getting concerning to me. But at the same time, I wonder and I worry, exactly what about the authors? What about the creators? Just how much rights do they have, should they have, and how much would those be impacted? Now I see Pam laughing. Go ahead, Pam. Or is it your cat who's doing something now?
I think that, if I purchase something, for example, I purchased some music from Amazon, and I paid for it, and I have proof that I paid for it, and then my hard drive crashed, and I had to buy a new computer, and, that music is no longer available to me. And I don't think that's right, because if I had purchased the CD and my CD player broke, I can buy another CD player and, pop in the CD. I mean, I purchased my right to use that copyrighted material, but it's not good forever. I don't agree with that.
But if your house burned down and your discs burned up,
right? Or if somebody sat on your LP, God forbid you should still have an LP. Someone sat on your LP and broke it. You wouldn't expect to go back to Virgin Records and have them give you another piece of vinyl with an album cover on it.
Well, but here's the problem, Michael, and LPs are actually a bad example in this case, because LPs predate a lot of how our copyright law has evolved and changed. With LPs, you had a guaranteed right to make a copy of it. With CDs, you don't have that right anymore.
Okay.
If you have let's look at movies, for example. If you have a physical print of a movie, you have an absolute right to make a copy of that print for your use, for your personal use. You can't sell that copy, but you have a right to make the copy. With a DVD, you don't have that right anymore.
But with my CDs, I can burn a CD. I can stick my CD in and burn it onto my MP3 player, or
unless you have a Sony CD, in which case they'll just take over your compact disc player.
I haven't had a problem ripping any CDs into digital music.
You can do that, but are you allowed to do it?
The answer, yes, you are. I mean, our copyright law as it exists today gives you the right to make a backup copy, basically.
Yep.
The problem
and that includes DVDs.
It does include DVDs. The problem is with digital rights management systems. Yep. They're not allowing you to. They basically have taken that right away as part of your license agreement.
Yeah, my husband has like 12 different programs or whatever, and sometimes he has to use all 12 of them to copy a DVD, so that we have a backup copy. And, that's just the way it is.
We've got two comments on this subject before we start wrapping up. From Roxanne, faculty members, authors, they have few options. They have open source repositories, Creative Commons licenses. We need to be flexible for our ebooks, digital rights managements, numerous formats. It really is a mess out there. And finally, from David, I prefer to have my collection in the cloud for that reason. David, my big challenge on that one, however, is what happens if your cloud provider suddenly goes away? You're kind of
the cloud provider.
You're kind of relying on the fact that Google is, that Google isn't going to abandon music services like they've abandoned other services.
Right. That's why you have to back up your stuff in the cloud. Sorry, Stormy.
It's a simple question. What's going to happen more often, my cloud provider going out of business or my house burning down? Well, obviously, there have been plenty of cloud providers who have gone out of business, and my house is still here after nearly 100 years.
But plenty of houses burned down as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start wrapping up, and as is Dan's tradition, again, for those of you who are tuning in late, well, it's very late. Dan has been unable to join us due to a power outage at his broadcasting studios. The last message I received from him, which was far too long ago, to be perfectly honest, says that he's okay, but he does seem to still be without power. So it looks like he is not going to be joining us. I would like to hear all of your comments about what your Google Plus week was like. And I'm going to first turn it over to our pals in the studio here, and then I'll collect some of your comments from YouTube and from Google Plus. So let's start with you, Stormy. Let's go down the row. What was great for you on this Google Plus week? How was your Thanksgiving?
Well, I made it onto What's Hot for the first time, so that was very exciting for me.
Very cool.
Over 300
Congratulations.
shares. And it was a post on how to make Google Plus faster in Chrome. So if you've got trouble with that, look up my profile, find the post. Stormy Henderson.
You want to give a quick summary as to what the issue is, and so people know to go look for it?
Chrome recently enabled by default GPU acceleration for Chrome. And most people don't have a graphics card of sufficient power to make that useful. And so if you simply disable that acceleration in your graphics processor, then Google Plus speeds up a lot.
So that's a great find. Again, tune into Stormy's channel if you want to find out more about that. Pam, how about you? How was your Thanksgiving?
My Thanksgiving was uneventful. It was nice. Had a very quiet week, and that's good.
Did the kids make it home for Thanksgiving? Did you want the kids home for Thanksgiving?
My kids live with me, so they were both home. They're 18 and 20, and they went with us to our friend's house, and I made some great sweet potatoes and cranberry relish, and just had a good time with our friends. And I tried Stormy's extension or fix, and it works great. I can't even tell you the difference. It's awesome.
Yep, I just about cried when I first tried it because I was so frustrated with Google Plus being slow in Chrome.
Yeah.
So, Michael Ellis, how was your Google Plus week?
Well, everything was great. I've been teaching new people how to use Hangouts, and that's fun. We're still trying to promote the German practice Hangout. We got shared publicly by somebody who has a couple million followers, so that was pretty exciting.
Awesome. Always great. Michael Banks, You have a good Thanksgiving?
I was pissed.
Why were you pissed?
You know I'm pissed.
You mean you didn't get a Nexus 4?
I got one. I got my receipt. I just don't have one physically. And like every time I call, it's really a rant, I'm telling you. Every time I call freaking Google Play, it's a freaking different answer. It's like one time it was like, they're coming. One time it may have shipped and you didn't get the tracking information. One time it may take up to 3 weeks. Then I got an email. Then I got people emailing me telling me that, it's on back order, so now you gotta wait next week. Call back in 24 hours. You should get some information. Got nothing. So I'm basically waiting on my freaking Nexus 4, but I got my receipt, so I'm getting one.
Even if you've got to go to the store and knock someone over the head with it, yeah.
I'm gonna call somebody. We'll do it live. I'll make sure I schedule a press release with Dan, and we'll do it live on Google Plus.
Monica, how was your Google Plus week?
My week was great.
Do anything good for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, had some turkey, had some potatoes. And I got opera tickets as a belated birthday present.
Great. What opera?
The world premiere of The Scarlet Letter.
Well, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'm psyched because, as I mentioned before, I love literature. So.
Esther Prynne.
Yep.
Reverend Bruce.
I'll be there with my A on.
Well, tomorrow we'll wrap up my first full 2 weeks with the Samsung Galaxy Note. Some of you know I had a Nexus 7, turned it back. I'm not a tablet kind of person. I'm a one-device sort of person. And I have to say, it has been a great experience. And I'm really, one of the things I wanted to do on this was to use it as a book reader for Kindle. And I really enjoyed it. And my sister introduced me to a series of books called Wool. and it's very much kind of in the Hunger Games genre, and they're really intriguing. And I've read 5 of the book series now of Wool on my Samsung Galaxy, and that's been a great experience. So, and you know, at Thanksgiving when all the family got together and they all had their little teeny iPhones and everything, you know, my phone was the big hit.
So you're saying it's all about size. Wait, Pam's not here anymore.
That's size matters, yes.
So we have we actually claim to have 13 viewers still watching us this evening. We peaked at about 15 or 16 early. Oh, we're up to 14 now. Why we acquired a view? Well, we're down to 13 again. We have this comment from David. Thanks for the great show. David, thank you as always for tuning in and watching us. It's been an exciting Google Plus week for me. I had some client work that I love doing, but it ran me ragged. A lot of things ran me ragged this weekend. I then spent some great time with family and friends for Thanksgiving, and that's always wonderful. I kind of rushed from that to come to the show this evening. Was expecting to play the simple co-host, and I find myself in the anchor seat tonight. We miss you, Dan. I miss you an awful lot. You can have the show back next week, really. But it has been quite a Google Plus week. This is Dan McDermott's show. He is normally here every week at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Currently, that's 1 a.m. GMT. We are every Friday night on the East Coast. We do this every week. We have a blast. Normally, this will be out of Dan McDermott's channel. This is out of mine, and we'll try to get this to our more regular channel, this copy. But we hope you all join us again next week, and we hope until then you have a very, very good Google Plus week.